Geoffrey Ruku is the Member of Parliament for Mbeere North constituency. He says he supports the finance bill and he's going to vote for it, but we want to hear from him. So when the president said yesterday, I want to see this MP who will vote no and then go to his people and say, his or her people, and say, I voted no for this bill. I want to see that MP. And I want to see what they say and how they justify that to their member. Was that a threat, City? Did you take it as a threat to legislators?
If I were to give it a worst-case scenario, it's like a veiled threat, but I actually don't think it's a threat. If I listen to how the president speaks, if I take the mannerism, the manner in which he makes his communication, I wouldn't call it a threat.
What is it?
It is one. Let me describe it in Kiswahili. Tutakaa tuone. Meaning there will be consequences for whatever it is that they say, and but let's wait and see.
Let's see what you say.
Let's wait and see, because the underlying tone of that conversation was, okay, there's something he knows and understands about members of parliament and how they go about their business, and there is what they say in public and there's what he knows in private. Okay? So now he says, okay, so we've got this bill coming up. All right, let's see. There are things we know.
Geoffrey Ruku is the Member of Parliament for Mbeere North constituency. He's our guest this morning. Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Good morning, Latif.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you so much.
It's good to occupy the hot seat of the Situation Room.
I'm honored to be here.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
You know, you are one of those legislators who's been very vocal in support of the finance bill in toto.
Yes.
And in fact saying in some areas that taxation is not really an issue here in this country. In fact, we are not even taxed enough.
True.
Is that what you said?
Yes.
Please explain.
We have several development indicators which shows the development of a country, the size of an economy. There's a reason why we say Kenyan economy is one of the biggest economies in Africa. We may be number 4, number 3 in terms of the size of the economy. There are those parameters which are used in economics, in finance, in business to measure the size of an economy. And all these development indicators, one of them is tax revenue to GDP ratio. When we compare the Kenya tax revenue to GDP ratio, is not at the average of all the nations in the world. Okay? You know, we talk about mortality rates in an economy, in a nation. How is it measured? The very poor nations have very high mortality rate compared to the developed nations.
Yes.
So it's an indicator in terms of development. When you talk about the GDP per capita of a nation, is an indicator of, it's a development indicator. When you talk about the average monthly salary, you know, of a nation, how is it measured? You know, today, if I tell you the monthly salary, average of our economy is around $1,200. When we have people, millions of Kenyans, who are not earning anything, will you say it is true? Of course, every Kenyan will say that this is not true. But when we say that these are the parameters which we are using to measure whether we have a healthy economy or not, these are parameters which cannot be disputed. These are parameters which are used by IMF, by World Bank, by Africa Development Bank, and other institutions. Even so by Central Bank of...
They're universal parameters.
Even by the Central Bank of Kenya.
Okay.
So the truth, and this is the truth of the matter, is that tax revenue to GDP of our country is at 14%. The average tax revenue to GDP of Community of Nations is at 23%. So we are 9 points below the expected tax revenue to GDP ratio.
Okay.
You understand? What are the elements, variables, which are used to come up with tax revenue to GDP ratio?
Yes.
You know, I listened some guys, some journalists, saying we pay this percentage of pay as you earn, we pay VAT, we pay blah blah. So you add all those things, you say, we are at 70%. That is how someone who has not gone to a class of finance or economics will do. But some of us who have spent a number of years in the school of finance, school of economics, school of business, we understand clearly the variables which are used in measuring some of these things.
Okay.
And it is good for Kenyans to listen.
Now, teachers, what does it mean? When we say that our tax revenue to GDP ratio is 14%, what do we measure?
What it means is that the size of our economy, all what is generated annually, all the income put together, and we're not talking about government income. We are talking about government income. We are talking about the private sector. Put all that together. Then you divide by the tax revenue we government which generate annually. You multiply by 100%, by 100. I mean, you divide by 100. Okay? You are able now to get tax revenue to GDP. The higher the GDP of a nation, the higher the tax should be. You understand?
Does it look at everybody in the country or does it look at only those who are in the tax bracket?
It looks at everybody who is earning and who is not earning. That's why we talk about public finance. Last year, public finance is about three things. One is about efficient allocation of national resources. And always resources are scarce. So they have to be efficiently allocated. Number two, public finance is about distribution of national income. We have to ensure every Kenyan, whether you are a chokora, whether you are in slum, whether you are the most adored, the national income should have an effect on your life, on your day-to-day activities. You should be able to have water. You should be able to have health facility. You should be able to enjoy good transportation facilities. You should be able to enjoy security. You should be able to enjoy education. You know, all those things are not given to so and so is denied because he lives in a slum. Number three is about stability of economy. You have to be able to stabilize the economy at any given moment, which Kenya should be able to live in a very stable economy. An economy which is predictable. That businesses can be able to invest in this country because we have an economy which is stable, which is predictable. Every investor would want to invest in an economy where he can be able to project how things will be 5-10 years from now. So the stability of an economy is extremely important. And public finance must be able to achieve those three things. These are three things which have been missing in our nation over the years.
Okay.
And we have to correct those things. We have to make very difficult and firm decisions. Kenyans are not used to some of these decisions. We as elected members or people who have been chosen by Kenyans to represent them, we have to tell them the truth.
Okay.
Mheshimiwa, do you really think that Kenyans have a problem with paying taxes?
Senior Kenyans, wealthy Kenyans who have committed economic crimes and they have escaped scot-free, they have big problems of paying taxes. That's why this finance bill is talking about the tribunal, the tax appeal tribunal, that at the moment we have more than almost close to 500 billion, which is under tax tribunal, being discussed there years in, years out, because they don't want to pay tax. So the proposal here is that once you lose in a tax tribunal and you want to go to High Court, we know how pharaohs who are making billions of money, they have their way to escape. Then we go to High Court, you stay there for 3 years. You can go to Court of Appeal, you stay there for another, 5 years. You can go to the Supreme Court, you stay there for another year. And until the case is forgotten and it lapses because of time, We have to take this country back on track by ensuring we pay taxes. Kenyans who are hustlers at the bottom of the pyramid, they have no issue with paying taxes. But senior Kenyans with huge businesses, they have serious problem of paying taxes. For instance, we are talking about petroleum VAT from 8% to 16%. We need to ask ourselves a very serious question. How come it moved from 16% to 8%? The answer is there are people who are very senior in government who decided, because we have interest in the market of petroleum product, we have to give ourselves a tax benefit of 8%. Who is losing in this case? It is Kenyans who are losing. It's Kenyans who are not able to get enough resources to build schools, to build roads, to take over our security, our hospitals, all this. And all these billion of Kenyan shilling went into pocket of somebody because that person has interest in petroleum marketing companies.
You mean
that is an economic crime. We should be punished.
The hustler did not benefit from that?
Huh?
The hustler did not benefit from that?
Of course they did not.
Okay. So I'm almost hearing you say then one of the areas which a lot of sweat and elbow grease needs to be put into then is the fight against corruption and not the increase or increment of taxes.
It's two things. You have to put everything into perspective. When you have mentioned corruption, I have 400 some amendment of AntiCorruption Act.
In Parliament.
In Parliament. I'm moving a bill, an amendment bill in Parliament for Anti-Corruption and Crimes Act of 2003. Because we are missing it as a nation. For over 20 years now, how many corruption cases have been won in courts? Ask yourself, how many? Over 95% of all corruption cases have been dismissed in our courts. We need to ask ourselves as Kenyans, why? It's because we have ineffective law. Law which does not take care of the real issues. How many cases have been forwarded in our courts? Cases pertaining economic crimes, not corruption. We're talking about economic crimes. An economic crime can massacre more than 1 million Kenyans at a given second. Because it means we may not have electricity in hospitals. Why do we have very expensive electricity in our country? It's because some people, senior, decide to come up with policies which are making electricity expensive. It's because very senior people decide to give themselves tax exemptions. The Ministry of Finance has just given us, in the last regime, that the total number of amount of money which has been companies which have been tax exempted, it is totaling to 646 billion Kenyan shilling. Is that not an economic crime?
So then the problem is actually they're not focusing on the issue as opposed to the increment of taxation. The problem that we're looking at here to plug the holes where money has actually been leaving that should be going towards some of these things that is not actually happening. Because one of the things that you spoke of is that the national outlook should affect your life, and some of the examples you gave were of water you put on the tap and water comes out of it. You go to the hospital and there's medicine there. I mean, we hear about these scandals on and on and on and on. So because until today we cannot actually be told that the taxation, the money that comes from taxation, this is actually what it does in terms of development. We do know, though, that there are holes through which corruption seems to be able to sneak through. So should the attention not be paid to these things which you're clearly so frustrated about, instead of working on increments of taxation?
We have to look at it in two ways, or in two dimensions. Remember, at the opening, we said that tax revenue to GDP ratio of our country is at 14%. We need to move it slowly, gradually, so that we can be able to take care of all these social amenities. Article 43 of our Constitution talks about economic and social rights.
Yep.
And all those economic and social rights should be guaranteed by any responsible government. We have seen in responsible government or nations, leaders being taken after they leave office, being dragged to courts.
Yep.
And if you go to Article 226 of our Constitution, 5, you'll see that it is clearly spelled out that in case you commit corruption, whether you are in office or not, you are held responsible. From 2010 up to now, Article 226 of our Constitution has not been put into effect. You put into effect articles of Constitution through Act of Parliament. Why is it that nobody, no member of Parliament, no government ministry or minister, and to sit down and put some effort into putting Article 226 of our Constitution into effect through an Act of Parliament? So we have quite a number of things which we need to do, because we bestowed ourselves a very progressive constitution, a very progressive constitution which we don't want to take care of.
Why don't you want to?
We need to guarantee ourselves, all the rights stated in economic and social right, Article 43. But you see, we have quite inept institutions. One of them is AntiCorruption Authority. Another one is Human Rights Commission. Human Rights Commission, which is paid by Kenyans' money. Commissioners who are earning salary, who have vehicles and drivers and even bodyguards, getting huge salaries. But these guys are not championing the rights enshrined in our Constitution. They are just sitting there trying to talk about how government is not implementing.
Are they well facilitated?
Of course, they have a budget.
Is it sufficient?
All the commissions we have, there are about 7 or so commissions in the Constitution. Those are independent commissions. And it is not a privilege for them to have a budget. It's just like saying a retired president or a retired prime minister is guaranteed by the Constitution security, monthly salary. It's clearly stipulated, regardless who become the president. So these institutions, commissions, have proper budgets, but we have very lazy Kenyans who are working there. the commissioners who are there. The commissioners who are there, they should be coming out to tell Kenyans how the economic and social rights need to be guaranteed by any responsible government. Article 43B talks about accessible housing
and sanitation. Yep.
Why are they not trying to tell us that as government guarantee health, education, food,
It must also
guarantee housing?
and
Why is it
sanitation.
that it is the right of a member of parliament, myself, to get 3% for mortgage, but my sister here cannot be able to get that 3%? What is this
that you have?
that I have as a Kenyan? You don't have, and we are talking about a very progressive Bill of Rights.
Geoffrey Ruku, the MP for Mbeere North constituency. We are talking about Finance Bill 2023. Mheshimiwa, I'm going to ask you a question that City has been asking. Do you think Kenyans have a problem paying tax?
Thank you, Ratif. Kenyans have no problem of paying tax. The Kenyans who are unworking, but we have Kenyans who have been have captured the economy for quite some times. They have a huge problem of paying tax.
Okay. The Finance Bill 2023, do you think it affects all those Kenyans equally?
No, it doesn't affect. Tell me, Ratif, do you ever envisage yourself going to a tax tribunal?
Myself?
That having a problem with your taxes, so you write a petition to tax tribunal, so that you can be listened to, so that you can say whatever I'm being asked to pay to KRA is much. I should pay less.
Well, no, I'm hoping not.
Yes.
But I've
we have
heard very
Kenyans-
many people who are running
we
small
have-
businesses.
We have Kenyans.
who have had a running with KRA. Small businesses.
We have
Mheshimiwa.
Kenyans who have written several petitions to KRA trying to evade tax. I've just mentioned here that the total number of tax exemption to a number of companies, companies for those who are rated in power, has been about 646 billion Kenyan shilling. That is a huge amount of money to finance the education sector.
Yes.
That's a huge amount of money. Do you know how many billions, for instance, the budget 2023, 2024 budget for the county is 390 billion Kenyan shilling. So we are talking about
Almost double.
double the amount which money can finance our counties for 2 years. So this is huge amount of money which people were given tax exemption. And whoever gave out those tax exemption, I don't understand, not even a single minute, why the AntiCorruption Authority has not instituted economic crime prosecution for such kind of individuals.
Fair enough, Mheshimiwa. I mean, there's that category
Yes.
of taxpayers that
Yes.
will have issues,
Yes.
right? And the issue there then goes into, why you need to deposit 20% of the amount in dispute with the tribunal before you commence conversations. But that's a different conversation.
What you have said
With
is
the
not
rest-
true.
with
What
the
you
rest-
have, what you have said is not true.
What is it? What's the position?
Before you commence, it's not before you commence the hearing. It is Article 35 of this finance bill, and it talks about tax appeals tribunal.
Right.
Is when you go to this tribunal, you put your petition, then the tribunal rules out that you are supposed to pay tax. Okay? So if you want to go to High Court, because that has been the process, you lose in tax tribunal appeal,
Then
you can go to High Court, so you are not paying. You may lose also in High Court, you can go to Court of Appeal, so you are still not paying taxes.
You don't-
Those are here.
And no deposit is required of you.
Yes. But
None
now,
whatsoever.
Yes, before. But for now
you shall have a deposit.
we are
If
saying,
you want to challenge
for
the
now we are
outcome
saying,
of the tribunal.
once you want to challenge the outcome of ruling of tribunal, and you are going to High Court, please deposit 20%. If you win in High Court, your 20% will be refunded within 30 days.
But at the
That is
tribunal, you pay nothing.
At the tribunal, you pay nothing.
That is what is in this bill.
Yeah, that's what is in this bill. At tribunal, you pay nothing. Once you lose at tribunal, you run to High Court. Please
Deposit.
deposit 20% of what you are negotiating in High Court.
Why was that included? Why?
Because all of us, we are Kenyans, we know the story in this country where people know their way of manipulating the system, manipulating the justice administration procedures. You are going to hire lawyers, 10 of them, they will come there, argue all manner of cases, quoting different judgment in different Commonwealth jurisdiction. Then the judge will be made to see, to rule in the favor of whoever, you know. So it continues like that. So what we are saying is, because we know very clearly, you don't want to pay 20 million, you don't want to pay 50 million, and you have made money, please just deposit 20%, so that we can start having a serious conversation as a nation. It is high time for us, for a government to be able to guarantee all economic and social rights. We need also to have a very serious system put in place. And we're able to change this country in a period of 10 years from now.
There's an amendment bill you said you have taken to Parliament.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about it, please.
Thank you. Article 45 of the Anti-Corruption and Crime and Economic Crime Act of 2003, which was enacted before the Constitution of the Republic of the new Constitution of the Republic of Kenya, has been with us for the last 20 years. Therefore, that act is now ready for repeal. And not only amendment, a total overhaul of the entire Anti-Corruption and Crime Act, so that we can put everything into perspective as far as the Constitution 2010 is concerned. Article 45, 2, 2B and C introduces ones which negate Article 45, 2A. Article 45, 2A is very good. It can send anybody who has committed corruption to jail with immediate effect. But Article 45, 2B introduces ones which lawyers will argue in any court of law from morning to evening, from evening to the following morning, until cows come home, without making any progress.
Why?
A word like carelessly. By the way, let's ask ourselves a question. We have corruption in the private sector, and we have corruption in public sector. When we have corruption in private sector, what happens?
Dismissal and
what are the steps which are normally taken? There is managerial issues. There is a way of dealing with corruption in the private sector.
Yeah.
So now you come here and introduce ones which carelessly. What is careless to me is not careless to you. It may be careless for me, for instance, to give an example. I don't want to.
No, give me as an example. I am usually a very good example. Please, don't hesitate. Carry on.
Yourself
yes.
away.
Go on.
Please don't take it.
No, I will not take it badly.
I'm in a jacket, a suit,
Yes.
and a tie.
Yes.
I may say, this guy is just careless. Why is he not in a suit,
and tie?
Yes.
a tie?
It's a fair enough question, yes.
But also, you may also say the same.
I'm sure you ask why are you strangling yourself?
Why are you, so it's the same thing.
Yes.
When I'm working on a project. To me, I'm extremely prudent in whatever I'm executing the project. But in the eyes of another person, I'm extremely careless. So the lawyers will argue there every morning until we have lost almost 95% of all the cases
So how is your bill
of
curing that?
corruption in our courts. So by repealing Article 45B and C,
Yes.
for instance, C talks about prior planning. We have the term prior planning is not defined in any law.
It's not premeditated.
It's not defined in Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act. It's not defined in the Anti-Corruption
Economic Crimes
Act itself. It's not defined. It's not defined in Fair Action, the Fair Administrative Action Act. It's not defined in any law. So the lawyers have their free day in court, trying to argue with the magistrate or with the judges.
About
Tell
fair
us,
planning.
you are talking about fair planning. Is it a budgeting process? Is it strategic planning process? Strategic planning process is a function of a board.
But
And
Mheshimiwa,
proposal.
I have to ask
so
this
we
question.
We have to, as a responsible parliament or National Assembly, we must give our courts a very clear law which can be able to be used by the courts to give
prosecute
proper
cases.
judgment, timely, quickly, effectively, But now we give laws which are very ambiguous.
Aha. And who gives these laws, Mheshimiwa?
That law was done 2003 by retired Justice Aaron Dingara, okay, and he has himself said that there are quite a number of mistakes within the Anti-Corruption and Crime Act which need to be mainstreamed, and I think we need to fight corruption in a very firm manner, and not only corruption, we need to seriously, in a serious manner, fight economic crimes, because economic crimes have serious consequences to an economy. They distort prices.
But Mheshimiwa,
Yes.
the house you belong to is where we make our laws. Is that not so?
Yes.
It is you, Mheshimiwa, like yourselves, who make the laws.
But you see, when I propose such an amendment, the civil society are up in arms, saying that now Parliament of Kenya want to ensure people can run away free when they commit a crime. They are not telling us the subsidy which was provided for unga, and that subsidy never went to the right people. When are we going to see those who are responsible for that being taken to court? They are not telling us when the 16% of petroleum VAT petroleum product was taken back to 8%, and the minus 16%, it went back to the pockets of senior people in our country because they have interest in petroleum product. When are these people going to be taken to court under the economic crimes?
Who has the power to make laws, civil society or Parliament?
The law is there at the moment for the economic crimes. It is there. We don't need to. Yes, we need to have a whole repeal of the entire Anti-Corruption Act, but using the laws which are there at the moment, before they shout at the tops of whatever, why are they not asking? We are not able to see prosecutions of people who have committed economic crimes.
What you say,
Anti-corruption itself is a conflicted
Mheshimiwa,
institution.
What you say is
Yes.
actually true.
Thank you.
It is true if you apply it to civil society. It is equally true if you apply it to Parliament, because when it suits the purpose of either bodies, they will argue a case very spiritedly, very vehemently.
Yes.
But when you come to the practice of these laws as we know them in this country,
Yes.
there seems to be an understanding that self-preservation trumps everything else. Meaning, when you look at the outcomes of these laws, or when you look at the practice of them, there's a simple one that I always find confusing. There's always this mention of lifestyle audits and how it is supposed to help determine whether someone is actually fit for office, etc., etc., etc. In the last election, we even had the Ethics and Anti-Corruption with a list of people who had issues which were unresolved. That is putting it as politely as I possibly can. It had no effect whatsoever. So, you see, when one looks at the conversation about our laws and one looks at the practice of it, what strikes you is the anomaly. And it looks like there is a class of individuals in this country for whom these laws don't apply. So it is the Mwananchi, this so-called Mwananchi whom everybody talks about, calls them Wanjiko, other calls them Hustler. It is them who have to bear the brunt of these laws. And it's them who have to bear the brunt of the games that are played by those who feel these laws don't necessarily apply to them. I'm looking at a country like South Korea. 2 presidents in jail.
Correct.
No jokes about it.
Yes.
Okay?
Even Israel.
Yes.
Former prime ministers of Israel, we have seen them sentenced to jail.
You go to jail. Now,
Yes.
when you have a system like that, you then know that these laws apply to everyone. You don't need to be told because you've seen it.
You can see.
Yes.
But in our case, Mheshimiwa, unfortunately, especially with regards to corruption, the parliament before the one you're in now, the one who came in with the constitution, guaranteed that that particular bit of our constitution or the laws was completely ineffectual.
But what I can tell you is that we have a president who is committed, extremely committed to fight corruption. And he doesn't want to talk to corruption. You will never hear President William Ruto continuing issuing threats about corruption. You'll be seeing actions on corruption. And that's why I'm saying we are at the right space as a nation to move from the status where we are economically to a different, completely different economic status in a couple of years from now, so long as we have President William Ruto as our president.
Time will tell.
We will wait to see. What do you say to the hustlers who are looking at the finance bill and hearing what is likely to affect them in this finance bill? When you talk about increase in excise duty on airtime, on any kind of income that they make, turnover tax, and all those small taxes that are affecting the small hustler and Mwananchi, who is sitting back and wondering, why am I going to be paying more? And especially if you look at that and then you look at how much money will go into NHIF contribution, how much more money is going into NSSF contribution, and now the housing fund. What do you say to them?
I'm getting a bit disappointed with the opposition because they are pending rise to Kenyans. If you get a copy of finance bill and you go to page 248, that's why it talks about excise duty of all things which you are talking about. It goes up to page 252.
Yes.
And I can tell you with certainty that there is nowhere in this excise duty page of finance bill where it proposes to increase excise duty on credit. Instead, it is decreasing excise duty from 20% to 15% so that Kenyans can have affordable internet bundles. That is a fact. The same finance bill is trying to mainstream 7-8 value chain processes. Because this is what has missed. Remember, or at opening our discussion, I talked about three things which are key in public finance. One of them is to have a very stable economy, and the value chain processes help in achieving the stability of economy. The finance bill is proposing to increase taxes on imported furniture, to increase taxes on imported fish, to increase taxes on
Clinker.
VAT on petroleum product. Why? Because that's a question which Kenyans are asking themselves. Is because this 8% has not been going to the government. This 8%, the minus 8%, has been used to benefit some people who have used.
I actually don't understand, how is it used? I mean, the government is the one who charges the 16%. Same government charges 8%. So if the government was charging 16%, where was this 16% going? And if they're charging 8%, where is it going? I mean, as a layman, I don't understand.
Another good question.
Yeah, I mean, where does the money go? Or does the government have two agencies that do the taxes and collect them, other than KRA?
I'll give an example.
Yes.
I don't know which layman example I can be able to give, but let me try. Today, you have in your house. In your house, you buy bread every single day or something common. You know?
Once a month, yes.
And this bread is supplied to you by a certain person who supplied your bread. Yes. Okay. And in this case, you have a shopkeeper. You buy this bread from a shopkeeper.
Yeah.
But shopkeeper get this bread from a certain supplier.
Yep.
So you negotiate with the supplier of shopkeeper. You tell him, instead of supplying this bread to shopkeeper, just supply this bread directly
To me.
to me. I normally pay 25 bob or 50 bob, for instance, or let's give it 100 bob to shopkeeper. When you supply it to me directly, I will not be paying 100 bob. I'll pay you 70 bob. But this 30 bob on top, which I was supposed to pay the shopkeeper that gone to you, we are going to split it in half. You get 15 and get 15.
Okay.
You understand?
I understand.
So here's a case whereby senior government officials are colluding with oil marketers. That instead of you paying 16%, pay 8%. But this 8%, let's agree on how we are going to share among ourselves.
Okay.
So we are talking about billions of Kenyan shilling going to the pocket of a few.
Actually, that's theft.
That's a serious economic crime.
It's theft.
I have
That
not understood it.
It's not only theft. It's not only theft. It's a crime against
Humanity.
humanity.
I haven't got it, but thank
And
you.
we have people who are walking scot-free in this country who have committed serious such kind of crimes, not only in petroleum product, but also
In others.
in gas, in
Mheshimiwa.
forestry, in milk,
Our time is up.
in eggs, and many other products.
Geoffrey Ruku, thank you very much for joining us. Mheshimiwa Ruku is the MP for Mbeere North constituency. He's been here explaining to us his thinking and his views on the finance bill.
Spice.